2023 is going to be another massive year for gaming. Several big names are set to return this year, with each one showing massive promise. One game I'm personally excited about is Street Fighter 6. Show of hands here, who got into the beta? Man, fuck all y'all! SF6 looks to right all the wrongs of Street Fighter V across the board. The visuals not only look better, but have better art direction, giving the game visual identity. The presentation is more dynamic and the characters have tons of personality. The netcode appears to be much improved over 5, and they even have other modes too to fool around with outside of online matches. Also, there's an arcade mode on day 1. Thank God. Everything you could ask for has seemingly been answered on a gameplay and technical level. Well, almost everything. Where in the timeline does this take place? Is it pre or post Street Fighter 3 era? I mean, obviously, we're past 5, but are we past 3? Obviously, the casual fan or hardcore player, the lore and plot of Street Fighter is irrelevant to how fun the game is, but I kinda enjoy Street Fighter's storyline. I'm not saying it's the best story ever told or anything like that, but enough effort has been put into it as to where anyone who's been paying attention to the storyline can find some great character moments sprinkled in. But before we tackle Street Fighter 6, we need to go back and explore how we got here, and perhaps where we will go. Join me as we piece together one of the longest running plot lines in fighting game history. The storyline of Street Fighter miniseries begins right here today on Backlog Challenger Investigates.
In the YouTube algorithm system, one dude makes video essays about video games. These are his videos.
Before we begin, I would like to lay out the way in which I'll be putting this project together. As far as research goes, I'll be using 4 main sources: official statements from Capcom, the Street Fighter Encyclopedia, Tiamat's plot guide, which is also based on official Capcom statements, and the games themselves. As for the games, we're only looking at the main titles, and other games that are directly related to the canon of Street Fighter. This rules out the EX series, Versus series, any random crossovers, Mouse Generation, and the game was based off of the 1992 movie. Also, since Capcom was addicted to revising the hell out of Street Fighter, the events of prior games are circumvented by the later ones, unless explicitly stated otherwise. Lastly, this isn't going to be super granular. We're not going to focus on dates or birth dates. Not because they don't exist, but because the dates and birth dates of the characters are pointless, as Capcom didn't start the series off with an overarching narrative in mind. A recurring theme, as you'll soon find out. Seriously, Street Fighter 2 has Ryu being born in '64, and if we assume that Street Fighter 6 takes place in this decade, and I'm using assume with several grains of salt here, that means that this motherfucker is in his mid-60s at the time of this game. Yeah, we're avoiding dates at all costs. Now with that out of the way, let's start. We have a lot of ground to cover. Our story begins with 2 brothers and fighters in training, Gouken and Akuma. The brothers are students under Gotetsu, a master of a sacred art called Ansatsuken, which basically means assassin's fist. Gotetsu had mastered his art to such a degree that he was able to use one of his deadliest techniques, the Satsui no Hado, or murderous intent. While Gouken showed no desire to learn the Satsui no Hado due to its darker nature, Akuma found himself drawn to it, a sign of things to come. Meanwhile, somewhere in the world, is a young and ambitious martial artist. This man trains to learn to harness a mysterious ability known as soul power. Soul power can change mental power into physical power. However, this fighter had no interest in soul power, but in a different power. This man's master perfected this power. This psycho power is the darker half of soul power, which is powered by negative emotions. This unknown martial artist was willing to obtain this power by any means necessary. Time passed, and eventually the unknown martial artist learned psycho power alongside 2 other individuals. Unfortunately, the unknown martial artist gave in to the negative effects of psycho power and killed his own master. Now fulfilling his own ambitions, this unknown martial artist now sets his sights on the world. Somewhere in Thailand lives a young kid named Sagat. Sagat showed talent for fighting at a young age. However, the constant battles over the years began to damage his left eye. He soon decided that he needed a better environment to become stronger, something more structured. Sagat began to pour his all into mastering Muay Thai. Thanks to his natural size and drive, he soon became a champion-level fighter by the time he turned 15. Being champion meant that he needed to defend his title from any challengers. Just about all of his title defenses were no trouble at all, except for one particular opponent. Sagat was challenged by a mysterious, unnamed man. Sagat and the man fought evenly until the man noticed a weak spot in Sagat's defense, his right eye. The masked man began to direct all attacks to Sagat's right eye and eventually gouged it out. Enraged, Sagat retaliated with a devastating combination of attacks and killed the masked man. His name was Hibiki. Sagat continued to be champion, but he knew that it was only a stepping stone to become the Emperor of Muay Thai, a title only reserved for the strongest practitioner of Muay Thai in the country. It was then that Sagat decided to finally challenge Gouken, the current emperor. Sagat faced Gouken in the Khmer ruins in a difficult battle. The two were evenly matched, but Sagat managed to defeat Gouken and become the new emperor. As Sagat was leaving, he gets stopped by one of the spectators. The spectator introduces himself as Adon. Adon asks Sagat to take him as a student, perhaps seeing the same desire to be strong in Adon as he once saw in himself all those years ago. Sagat decides to take Adon on as a pupil. Gouken and Akuma have advanced far into their training, but while Akuma became fixated on the Satsui no Hado, Gouken decided on focus on cleansing Satsui from the influence of that dark power. While Gotetsu could use the Satsui no Hado without it affecting him negatively, possibly by using it sparingly, Akuma fully entrenched himself in it. During this time, Gouken would take in an abandoned orphan child named Ryu and take him under his wing. For a time, things were fine until Akuma murdered Gotetsu for not fully embracing the power of the Satsui no Hado. Akuma left behind his brother and his dojo to train and grow stronger. Some time passes, and Gouken is visited by an eccentric young man named Dan Hibiki. Dan becomes Gouken's first pupil, and he begins to teach him in the ways of Satsui. However, Gouken soon learns of Dan's desire for revenge against the man who murdered his father, and rejects him, hoping to save the young man from becoming consumed by vengeance. All the way in the United States is one of Gouken's old friends, a wealthy hotel magnate named Mr. Masters. As head of the Masters Foundation, he hopes to one day pass his business on to his son Ken. Unfortunately, Ken has begun to act out, cause trouble, and become a delinquent, going so far as to dye his hair blonde. Fearing that his son needs to learn humility and discipline, he sends his son to Japan to train under Gouken in order to better himself. Coincidentally, Gouken was also starting to train Ryu at this time as well. It was then that the two boys would begin their path to becoming fighters as well as friends. After Gouken began to train them, he was visited once again by his brother, Akuma. Akuma challenged Gouken to a fight, but was decisively defeated by him. Akuma insisted that Gouken kill him, but he refused. Akuma left a defeated man that day, and Gouken continued to train Ryu and Ken. One night, Gouken is visited by the once nameless martial artist who now goes by the name M. Bison. Bison came to Gouken in order to find the heir to Satsui. However, Gouken felt that someone with this sinister power would come and see him one day. It was in that moment that Bison began to attack Gouken. Not wanting Bison to learn anything about his art, Gouken held back and was defeated. Bison figures this out and states that if he isn't willing to show him the true power of Satsui, then his students may be more willing one day. Bison then takes his leave of them as Gouken passes out. A few days later, Akuma challenges Gouken again, but this time he gains victory over him by using the deadliest technique of the Satsui no Hado, the Shun Goku Satsu, a powerful move that can instantly kill any opponent every single time. With Gouken seemingly dead, Ryu and Ken put Gouken's body to rest. With their training complete, Ryu and Ken decide to go out into the world to test their skills. Ken decides to go across the US and compete across the country. The US is host to several notable and skilled fighters such as Mike Hagar, one of the most famous competitors in the Capcom Wrestling Association, former professional fighters Joe and Mike, and Charlie Nash, a US Air Force lieutenant and the winner of the Pan American Martial Arts Tournament. Ryu decides to go to Thailand and challenge the Emperor of Muay Thai, the strongest user of what is stated to be the strongest martial art. Ryu arrives in Thailand and then proceeds to challenge several Muay Thai fighters in order to get Sagat's attention. After defeating 20 or so fighters, Sagat finally faces off with Ryu in order to show him real Muay Thai. Sagat and Ryu's battle pushed both men to their limits, but Ryu managed to pull off a victory against Sagat by hitting him with the full force of his Shoryuken and scarring the chest of the defeated Emperor. Once he has learned of his defeat at Ryu's hand, Sagat vows revenge and leaves in search of finding him so he may fight him once again. Back in the US, Ken is competing across the country. Mike Hagar becomes mayor of Metro City, a crime capital that he vows to clean up. Hagar makes good on his promise and begins to take care of Metro City's criminal element. However, his efforts are stymied by the Mad Gear Gang, the most powerful gang in the city. In order to get Hagar off their case, Mad Gear kidnaps his daughter, Jessica Hagar, and promises to return her if he lets Mad Gear do whatever they want with the city. Hagar then decides to take on Mad Gear with the help of two other individuals. Guy, a Bushin Ryu ninja in training, and a student of Zeku, the 38th Grand Master of Bushin Ryu. And Cody Travers, a skilled street fighter with a skill for knife fighting, and Jessica's boyfriend. The trio would go on to face the worst the Mad Gear Gang has to offer, such as Sodom, an underground fighter and an otaku with a rivalry with Guy. Hugo, a powerful wrestler and a member of the Andore family. Poison, an acrobatic fighter who's quite skilled with a whip. Abigail, a muscle-bound fighter originally hailing from Canada. And Rolento F. Shugurg, a military soldier part of the Red Beret unit. Their battles across Metro City eventually led them to their leader, Belger. Belger was a crafty foe but was eventually stopped by Cody as he knocked Belger through his penthouse window. Jessica was safe once again, and Metro City was now free from the clutches of the Mad Gear Gang. After the battle, Guy decides to seek out Zeku and complete his training. Cody and Jessica go on a vacation, and Hagar returns to his mayoral duties. Somewhere in parts unknown, Bison has been building his power and resources. During this time, he has built himself an organization to help him dominate the world. Many have suffered due to Bison's actions, such as the daughter of a respected Hong Kong vice officer, several abducted young women, and the armed forces, especially in the Air Force. Bison has also amassed the talents of some powerful fighters as well, like Balrog, a disgraced former heavyweight boxer who now only fights for money, and Vega, a narcissistic nobleman by day and a bloodthirsty killer by night. They are both joined by their newest recruit, the former Emperor of Muay Thai. With all of his resources firmly in his command, Bison begins his quest for global domination. The Shadaloo criminal organization will soon be known across the world.